Hello, and welcome to Lesson 9 on learning CircuitPython on the CircuitPlayground Bluefruit edition. And in this lesson, we're going to prove that you are electric. We're going to cover capacitive touch, which is touch sensing, and that is built into the CPB device. So if Python is your partial tongue, let's giddy up and get going. Now, the CircuitPlayground Bluefruit has 7 capacitive touch pads. These are these little rings on the side of the CPB that are labeled A1 through A6, and also the one that's labeled TX is also capable of sensing touch. Now, it's not just if you touch it, but it can also detect touches from other living things like pets. And we'll see that you can actually string things like alligator clips or copper tape, and they will convey touch as well. You can even clip an alligator clip to things like plants. And if you touch the plant, your electricity will go through the plant, through the alligator clip, to the capacitive touch pad, and the code that we're going to write will recognize that touch. Now, since we're using something new in Python, and Python normally doesn't know about capacitive touch, we're going to import a new library called touch.io. Then what we're going to do is we're going to set up the capacitive touch touchpad points. And the way that we do that is we refer to touch.io. There is a touch in command that we can use that will create new capacitive touch objects, and we just specify after board dot the name of the pin that we want to link to touch. So what we're going to do right now, just to try this out, is we'll set up in our while true loop 3 different conditions. We're going to check to see if A1, A2, or A3 is pressed. If A1 is pressed, we'll flash red and play the cowbell, or if it's 2, orange and the BD Zohm, or if it's 3, yellow and the electric high snare. So let's give that a shot. We'll hop over to our code, and I'm going to highlight these lines of code underneath while true and delete them since we don't need them for this example. And we're going to start from the beginning first to make sure that we have imported our touch.io. And we haven't, so what I'm going to do is put in a new import statement. So I'll say import touch.io. Then what we'll do is we'll set up the touch pads for the first 3 pads. And I'm going to show you some other techniques to use too, but this will be hopefully a simple one for us to begin to understand how touchpads work. So I'll put in a comment here which just says set up touchpads A1, A2, A3. And the way that we're going to do this is we'll type in touchpad underscore A1. That's a name. We could call it anything, but touchpad A1 is a good name for an A1 touchpad. And we'll say touch.io dot, and we'll say touch in, open parentheses, and when we say board dot capital A1 close parentheses, this says, hey, create something called touchpad A1, which is a new touch in object which will detect touches. And this object is associated with the touchpad A1 on our board. And now that I've done this with one line, I'm just going to repeat this, copying the first line and pasting it in twice. And in the second line, I'll change 1 to 2 in both of these places. And in the third line, I'll change A1 to A3 in both places. Now that we've got our library imported and we've got our 3 touchpads created, I'm going to go down here in the while true loop. I'm going to make sure that I'm indented underneath true after the colon, which I need to in order to be able to make sure these lines execute after true. And I'm going to type in some statements to be able to detect the 3 pads. So the first one, I'm going to say if touchpad, and it knows the names because I've just defined them, underscore A1 dot value, colon. Remember, that's the same command that I had used previously when I wanted to detect if a button was being clicked. And this will return either true or false. And so by saying if touchpad underscore A1 dot value, colon, when I press enter here, I indent, I'm just going to say pixels dot fill red. And I'm going to say play file, because we still have that defined. I'll open parentheses and we'll say drum underscore cowbell dot wave dot wav. And then after I've done that and played the cowbell, I'm going to say pixels dot fill, and I'll do black, which will turn off the lights on the CircuitPlayground Bluefruit. And now I'm going to grab this block of code here from the if and the 3 statements afterward, and then I'll paste it right below the code I just copied, and change touchpad A1 to A2, and change the color red to orange. Why don't we make the sound BD underscore Zohm. And then let's do one for touchpad number 3. So I've pasted in my if condition again. I'll change A1 to A3 here. Instead of lighting things up in red, I'll do these as yellow. And why don't we make the sound here the elec underscore hi high underscore snare dot wave. So with this all set up, I'm going to double click on the code.py tab and make sure that I'm saving in here. And my CPB is plugged in, so I'm saving to CircuitPy. And my code is called code.py, and replace the existing file with that name. And now if I go over and take a look at my CircuitPlayground Bluefruit, if my code works and I touch A1, there we go, things light up red, and I hear the cowbell. And this is that's the BD Zoom, and next to it, this is the high snare in yellow. Looking good. In the next video, we'll use lists to write far more efficient code, and we'll build a drum machine. Plus, we'll learn some tips to make our CPB sound louder, and maybe do a little bit of drumming on Fruit. Keep at it.